Have you ever wondered if there was some magical part of you that you've been unable or afraid to access? Have you ever felt or been told you're crazy? Here's a thought to ponder. What if you're not? What if every imaginary friend, every letter to Santa Claus, every fairy or elf you saw as a child was your inner self reaching out to the spiritual world? What if your blocks are really a bridge? What if your wounds are really your windows? What if all your anxiety and your trauma are there to elevate you to something greater than yourself? I'm here to tell you, you're not crazy, you're connected. Hear from the rock stars of the New Age world about that moment when they stepped into their power and how you can step into yours too. Here on Crazy Connected with your host, Bridget LeRoy. Welcome to this episode of Crazy Connected. I'm your host, Bridget LeRoy. We have a fabulous, fantabulous guest today. Veronica Lynn Clark is a trailblazer in personal transformation, intimacy empowerment, and somatic healing. She's going to tell us more about that. She's a best-selling author and runs retreats as well, and has been collaborated with organizations like Google, GE Healthcare, has been featured on the Today Show. I could go on and on and on. Welcome, Veronica. I'm going to let you speak for yourself. Glad to have you here.
I think that was perfect. That was a wonderful introduction. I really appreciate that.
Well, I really wanted to ask you first because it's something that fascinates me so much. How did you get into the field of somatic healing, and can you explain what that is?
Yes, sure. Okay, so let's talk about what somatic healing is first. So the word soma has to do with the body. And so somatic healing is really the premise of working with the body to heal the trauma and to release all of the stored energy, trapped stories, all the things that keep us bound and trapped. That talk therapy and going over the stories over and over again from the head, it doesn't help to erase the imprints or remove the imprints from the body. And so the approach when we're working with somatics is that we are really listening to the body. We're talking to the body. We're helping to move the trapped energy from the body. We're stopping. We're pausing, and using what we call a bottom-up approach versus a top-down approach, working with the body first. Yeah.
I understand that. And also, that reminds me, have you read, the works of Louise Hay? Because she definitely, well, first of all, there's the masculine side, your right side, and the feminine side, your left side. But she really had a lot of theories that, which made sense to me. If your shoulders hurt, it's because you're carrying the weight of the world. Or your left hip hurts, it's really your mother, because mothers carry their babies on their left hips. And do you subscribe to a lot of that as well?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I don't necessarily call it a particular name. It's just that we are energetic beings and we are multidimensional beings. So we live here in this physical 3D world, but we're also, everything that we're experiencing in the body has been experienced in the subtle realms first, right? So as within, so without. It's the same thing. Right. And so energetically, if our body is like, oh, I feel really heavy, or oh, I feel tight, or sometimes we have these physical ailments that are a result of the childhood traumas. Even if we didn't experience physical abuse or physical wounds, there's still the energetic imprints that will actually reflect in the body.
Now, I'm sorry, because I'm so interested in this. So you're also a Kundalini instructor. So do you subscribe, I guess, that's like a samskara, isn't it? That like a samskara, I like to think of it as like a ding in your armor that happened for some reason. And that's why you carry yourself in a particular way, Absolutely. Right? And so you can help with that.
All of it works together. What has been interesting in my own path is, and this goes to answer the question that you asked, how did I arrive here?
Oh yeah.
I let's say stumbled into my awakening. One thing is, I believe that we are always on the path, whether you're conscious of it or not. You are always on your path. No one is not ever. It's just that once we become more aware that we are on our path, then we can make more conscious decisions to move forward. And so once I became aware that I was on my path, this path of, and come back to that in a moment, but
Yeah.
the main thing for me was I had a nervous breakdown in the midst of the 2008 crash, and really lost the identity that I put together for myself that I felt like was going to get me to where I wanted to be, which was happy and whole and healed and all of those things like that. I just, and to be, truth be told, that even though I had so much childhood trauma, I actually didn't even subscribe to the idea that I needed to be healed. I had no idea
Right.
really what that meant. That felt so far removed for me. It's just, you just pick up and you just move forward, and that's just
Oh,
all you
yeah.
do. You don't look
Yeah.
back. It doesn't matter. It's over. You just keep going. And so that I already was removed from the fact that, oh, my body actually is holding on to stuff. So I had no idea about that until, thankfully, the crash, which also coincided with ultimately getting a divorce and all the other things that happen in a life that you're breaking down.
Yeah.
I realized that, yeah, I had an adult awakening. I had my first adult awakening, and I say adult because I've had other awakenings, but this was my first adult awakening that I was like, oh, something is happening, and I cannot keep going the way that I've been going. Something, I need to do something. And one of my girlfriends recommended that I go to her psychiatrist.
Hmm.
And I was like, okay. I went to the psychiatrist, and within 5 minutes, he was trying to prescribe me medication. And I
Of
have
course.
5 children, and I knew intuitively that that wasn't the path for me. But more so, I felt so offended. My soul felt really offended that he wouldn't even hear my story and just instantly wanted to prescribe me this medication. So I walked out. I did not fulfill that script or anything like that. And I found my way into another counseling center that focused on meditation and mindfulness. And
And
at that
didn't you start with Bikram yoga, wasn't it? Bikram hot
I
yoga?
did. Well, first I started with
Yeah.
meditation and mindfulness. That was actually my
Okay.
entryway in. And because I just needed to calm my mind, and that was actually the first point. Then from meditation and mindfulness, I'd say probably about 3 months later, I found my way, maybe about 4 months or so. Anyways, I found my way into Bikram yoga, and that began to change everything. So combined with the mindfulness and the meditation, which was that initial like invitation, learn how to calm your mind, stay right here,
Yeah.
listen to the chimes of the bell, right? Listen to that, and then
Yeah.
focusing with the mirror and focusing with my breath and that heat began to transform so much. So that, combined with then starting to understand and learn nutrition, there's all these links. And then wanting to teach, because I was experiencing so much change in my life, mentally and emotionally and physically,
Hmm.
that I decided to teach. And so I got certified in yoga, and I was like, I need to offer this. This is changing my life. I need to help other
Yeah.
people. That eventually led me to Kundalini yoga teacher training. So I have both
Yeah.
Hatha and Kundalini yoga backgrounds. And that finally began to put together the language. There was something that I knew that I was experiencing energetically, that Hatha yoga and that philosophy I didn't quite unlock. But the Kundalini yoga, that helped me to recognize and bring together my psychic abilities,
Hmm.
all of my other gifts, also understanding how to move my energy, which was like, something's happening, something is really changing. My anger, my rage, because I would have some towards my children. All of this is starting to discharge. Everything is changing. My
Yeah.
sexuality, my sexual energy was starting to transform. And long story, that ended up leading me to somatic experiencing, which opened up the door for further healing my sexual traumas and sexual, yeah,
Yeah.
just
Which we
relationship.
all have. I think don't know of a woman who doesn't have something, even if it's very well hidden, whether it's just shame, whether it's shame about bodies or whatever. It's amazing how similar our stories are, though. I also have a 500-hour, not Kundalini, Ayurvedic yoga from Kripalu. But around 2008, I also crashed and burned with the rest of the world, but not because of that other stuff going on in my life, and kind of rebuilt myself from the ground up, but I'm still me. So this
Yeah.
show, let me just back up. I mean, you kind of have already answered the question, but what was like, this show is about crazy connected. It's like, when did you realize you weren't crazy? You were connected. So was there a child, Veronica, who maybe was tuned into these things, or loved to talk to animals, or loved nature, or loved to talk about God, or whatever it was, and somebody was like, no, put a lid on it.
Yes.
They're going to put you away. They're going to put you away.
Yeah, so much so. Oh my gosh. When I was little, I would say God is showing me pictures of tomorrow. I would have, since I was like 6, 7 years old, I would have these dreams. I knew exactly what was going to happen the next day. And it was just very commonplace. It didn't seem like a big deal because it just was what happened. And I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
God's showing me pictures of tomorrow. And so there was that coupled with I just knew things. And I joke around. I was like a little witch right from the beginning. I would mix up all kinds of mud and make potions.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, nobody taught me this. In my family, the family of origins that I grew up in, nobody was doing anything like this. Like, this was not what you do. So I didn't learn this by watching someone. It was just something that came up. And we would like, I'd have other girls, my little friends, like we would get the tree bark and we'd put flowers on them and we'd walk around the trees and
Mm.
chanting. And I was like 7 years old
Yeah.
doing this.
Yeah. I
And
totally,
it's,
totally grok on that. Yeah.
it was
Crazy.
just what it was. It was so
Yeah.
natural.
Yeah, it is. It's amazing. And then unfortunately life, and I feel like, anybody who told me not to do it anymore was really just trying to protect me. It wasn't like they were being mean. They just thought, oh my God, you're a little kid. I was making my own rosemary shampoo when I was 10 years old. So I totally get it. And, yeah, so then what happened? Because it sounds like you derailed a little bit in 2008. I read on your thing that you were overweight as well, going through the divorce, having this nervous breakdown. But isn't that kind of the groundwork that leads us to change? You can't, like, people don't change because
100%.
things are going well, right? They don't change because
Absolutely.
things are perfect. They change because they have to frickin' change,
Absolutely.
right?
And as difficult as that process was, and as much as I would not want to go back through that again, I would not change it. I would not change
Yeah,
not one iota of it, not one. Now,
that's
one thing
amazing.
I want to mention though, because
Yeah.
I had all of these gifts, I had these gifts. They probably went to sleep for a while because of the experiences that I was having in my life. I had some very specific things that happened once where I met God on the playground when I was 7 years old. I remember specifically where I was standing. I was attending an elementary school in Carlsbad at that time. And this was an interesting, pivotal point for me when I look back, because it was as though God was letting me know, listen, you are about to go through some really difficult things, but you are not going to be alone. I am here with you. I specifically remember I started to go into this time of a lot of aloneness and not having friends. And I was on the playground and my eyes went down to the ground, and then I suddenly, like, just my eyes went all the way up. And
Mm.
and what I realize now, that in that moment, what I was experiencing in my body was a sense of awe. It was awe, but I did not have a word for that then. But that was I knew that's what I was experiencing. I mean, or that's as I look back on it. So 7 years old, I probably started becoming less aware of my gifts, and just kind of shifted into some other things that happened in my life. Still very tuned in, but the gifts began to show up differently. The gifts started to show up in my writing, but again, I wasn't as aware of them as gifts
Hmm.
until I was about 14 years old. then my gifts started coming back online, like so much, where somebody would walk through the door, I would know things about them, I'd get instant downloads. So there was a lot of that throughout high school. And then I realized that I was able to help people to release entities that were attached to their bodies.
Okay.
And so I would do that often. But then when I got married, my husband asked, he said, you have to stop. So it was actually my husband who was like, no more. You
Wow.
can't do this anymore. And so it was at that point that I shut those gifts off, and
Yeah.
I denied them in many ways. And I
Yeah.
realized now, it was like at about 20 years old, I put myself back to sleep, disconnected, tried to disconnect myself from my gifts. So that is really what that was.
That's amazing. And that is such a freaking common theme with people who are gifted is putting the lid on it.
Hmm.
I love that, putting your gifts to sleep because then they were there. They just needed to be awakened again.
Yeah.
Listen, can you tell us a little bit? Because I know that you lead retreats. I know that you're leading one soon in my beloved home of Costa Rica. And I wanted to ask you a little bit about Body Temple. Can you
Yeah.
tell me a little bit about what that is? Because that's one of your
Yeah. Oh my
things
gosh.
that you're doing.
Body temple sensuality training is a training for women to come home to themselves and to truly to learn how to embody themselves in every single way possible, to love themselves, to honor, to cherish themselves, to start seeing themselves in a new way. And we do this in community with other women, which is really essential because there's so many different wounds with women when it comes to competition, comparison, mother wounds, sister wounds, any of those kinds of things. So we get to
Hmm.
do our own individual healing amidst the safety, the comfort, the beauty of other women. And it is just so profoundly life changing. It's difficult to put into words because it is so experiential. The primary focus is truly embodiment, being here and learning how to be in your body and to be with it.
Wow.
So it's a 3 day immersive experience. We all live together in a particular space. It's like a massive sleepover. We dance, we have yoga, we breathe. We do a lot of energetic and shamanic practices, and
Yeah.
I'm express. I don't oftentimes say it in that way when we're in Body Temple, but it is a very energetic, as well as embodied experience that
Yeah.
creates so much transformation at such a massive rate. And that's one of the things that I really appreciate about myself is that I can help women to have such transformational shifts in a short period of time without any substances. We are 100% sober in that environment. That is
Yes.
absolutely paramount. We have some very specific principles, and I mean, people leave absolutely changed.
That's amazing. And it has so much to do with what, like the somatic and the sexual. I mean, it is so intertwined, you know.
Yes.
And then you also have this sacred exchange, right? What is it? The sacred energy exchange,
Yeah.
SEX, sex.
SEX.
And
Yeah.
wait a minute, let's not leave out the podcast, the Liberate Your Orgasm podcast. I love
Yes.
this. Can you, so this whole kind of sexual bent is so fascinating to me. I was brought up in a very open household. Like I never even owned a pair of pajamas ever. My parents let me and my sister sleep naked in the same bed. I saw my parents naked all the time. We all shared a bathroom. You know what I mean? Everything was kind of like right out there. I mean, and it wasn't creepy or weird. It was
No.
kind of okay. Um, but I'm in the, you know, minority. A lot of people are brought up feeling a lot of guilt and a lot of shame about their bodies and who they are and all of that. But it sounds to me like you are just a warrior princess on the battlegrounds of letting women really enjoy themselves, their vaginas, their partners. Tell me about how like the somatic stuff got into the intimacy sexual approach because I think that's fascinating.
It is fascinating. So for me, Liberate Your Orgasm really is a reclamation of your soul self. It is a reclamation of your erotic innocence. And it was, for me, a very important reclamation of my sexuality from any of my past experiences. And so to me, the world oftentimes views sex in a very in a very myopic kind of way. There's a lot of shame. There's a lot of stigma. If a woman enjoys her sex, she's a slut or she's a whore. There's all kinds of things like that,
Right.
right? And so to me, sexuality is a very natural, healthy state for us to be in. And it's
Yeah.
really about, for me, bringing it back to its rightful place in humanity and spirituality. And it is, so sacred energy exchange
Hmm.
is really that new definition of sex.
Yeah.
And as long as we understand our sexuality, this is why I spend so much time educating people on what is your sexual energy. Sexual energy can be used to have sex, but sexual energy is really used to help you to open up more to God, or to the universe. It's your
Hmm.
creative expression. It's your ability to use your voice and to create and
Yeah.
to make sounds. All of these things are so deeply connected. And so again, some of my work, such as like Body Temple, is to help take off that armor and all that protection that actually keeps you, away from your magnificence and your beauty of being able to fully express. And so there's a lot of teachings in that regarding boundaries and all kinds of things, but to really start to see your sexuality as sacred, and there is an exchange that we participate in when we are interacting and communicating with other beings, but also just with life. When I am making love to life, when I am lit up and I
Yeah.
am alive and vibrant in my life,
Yeah.
I'm making love to life, and life is just constantly making love to me, and we're just in this vibe and in this relationship, and it feels good.
Sounds like joy. It's what it sounds like. You're
Yes,
describing joy, right?
yes, it really
That's
is. It
that's so
really
beautiful.
is a natural resting place.
So someone who's listening right now who's just realized they're not crazy, they're actually connected. What advice would you give someone to start feeling that sense of joy or bliss? What's the first step?
The first step is to come home to your body, to apologize to your body for any of those times that maybe you disconnected from it and didn't want it, or didn't feel like it was an essential part of your ability to express your gifts in this life. This body is our best friend. We came into this world with this body. This is our partner, and our body wants us to live and to be in joy and to experience the fullness in life. This body is truly a gift. We cannot experience the fullness of life without it. And so many of us are disembodied because we're just living in the mind. So the
Yeah.
first thing to really be able to experience joy is that you've got to heal this relationship. Begin by just thanking your body, loving your body, saying, "Hey, I'm sorry I didn't get to know you more. I'm ready. I'm committed to start loving you and learning about you. And we're going to go along for this ride." And whatever goes on in the mind is programming the body to respond in a certain way. So we've got to start changing our thoughts and the way that we see things so that we can start to bring more health and vitality into our body. And that is going to, again, allow us to be a lot more clear energetically so that we can start to realize that we deserve to experience joy, that joy is available to us at all times, in spite of and regardless of whatever has gone on in your life. So it really begins with what I like to say is the mind is the masculine, the body is the feminine. So it begins with this relationship first. If you're
Yeah. Yeah.
disconnected from joy, you are disconnected from yourself in some way. And we must begin here.
I just love what you just said about thanking your body, because for my own journey, you just like sparked a memory. I was very, very overweight for most of my life until maybe like 10 years ago. And where I did have surgery, I did have the sleeve. I recommended don't, it's not surrendering. It's moving over to the winning side. If anybody's listening to this and on the fence, it was the best thing I ever did. But before that, I pretty much hated my body my whole life, right? But I remember that around this time of this awakening, I would put like my hands on, I could be grateful to my heart for beating, and I could be grateful to my lungs for breathing, or my uterus for having babies, or my liver for processing, everything through my body, or my kidneys. So I would just thank those parts of my body. I certainly wasn't going to thank my brain, though. That brain was an asshole. So, but all the rest was doing really well. But I totally relate to that. It really is. I mean, love can start with just a thank you, a simple thank you. And that's such a beautiful way. Veronica, you are so fascinating. We could talk for hours and hours, but we're coming to the end of our program. Tell me a little bit about the Costa Rica retreat.
Costa Rica
And
retreat
when
is
is it?
Heart of Ecstasy retreat. And we are looking at the 3 different rings of relationship: the relationship to yourself first, the relationship then to others in the romantic sense, but then also the relationship to others and to nature, right? To all living in harmony and communion with others and with the nature around you. And so it really is about opening up your heart, opening up to love, beginning to learn how to communicate from a place of love. And that begins with self. So it is July 13th through the 18th. It is going to just be full of experience, of depth, of beauty, of community. It's infused with song and singing and laughter and dance and yoga and meditation and river bathing, and also doing forest regeneration. So we will have a day of really giving back to the land and giving back to the community. We're going to eat delicious, delicious food. We are on this private property, this eco resort, and it is just so lovely. We're gonna live together in community and grow together in community. So
It's just wonderful. God, Veronica, I just adore talking to you, and you've given me like such joy. You've like sparked a little something inside of me. I know I'm going to go through the day whistling and being happy and joyful thanks to you. And if people want to learn more about Veronica, her website is veronicalynnclark.com. Do you have an Instagram that you'd like to share as well?
My Instagram is Veronica L. Clark.
That's wonderful. And I just thank you so much for coming on Crazy Connected. I feel the connection, and thanks everyone for listening. We'll see you next time.